This is a Film Stories original podcast.
If you own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles and have an auto warranty about to expire or no warranty coverage at all, listen up. CarShield has a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that covers more parts than ever. Visit carshield.com/audio to find out how you could pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Get your free quote today at carshield.com/audio. That's carshield.com/audio.
We made this.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Xcast. The truth is in here. I'm your host, Tony Black, as always, and we've got another very special episode with a very special guest this week for you. I'm talking with none other than Mr. Jeffrey Spender himself. He does have another name. It's Chris Owens. It's really nice to have you on the show, Chris. Thank you.
I'm still alive. He's
still with us. Thanks for coming on the Xcast. I know all the listeners are going to be really excited to hear from you today and hear you talk about playing this character and things like that. So it's a real pleasure.
It's great to be here.
So I suppose it's something you may. I don't know how often you've talked about playing the character of Spender, and obviously you played a lot of other characters on the X-Files, and we will talk about this as well as your career and things like that. But obviously, I suppose my first question is a basic question, but the answer may be already in what I've just said. But how did you become involved first and foremost with not just playing Spender, but appearing on the X-Files and in this world?
My now wife and I moved from Toronto to Vancouver. She wanted to go to law school, and she already had a few degrees here in Toronto. And I wanted to try a different market for acting. I'd done a lot of the basic shows you can do in Toronto, I suppose, at the time. And I'd heard there was this show called The X-Files that was quite popular out there. And I watched a few episodes, and I thought this is very interesting. Very low key, very cool. And then my agent set up an audition, so I got a chance to go in and read. And I read for one small part, which wasn't really right for me, I don't think. And then I went in for another part. And when I went in, there was this surfer dude guy sitting there in this very small room. And all I know is that he seemed to have a lot of pull, because when I got out of there, I was able to call my agent, and I knew in 10 minutes that I was playing this part. and he didn't say much, Mr. Carter, but he was a presence for sure. And then so the first part was playing the cigarette smoking man when he was younger in the flashbacks. Yeah. And so I, killed Kennedy and Martin Luther in the same episode.
It's a pretty big debut, isn't it, to do that?
Yes, I have to say, I did not know about the Martin Luther section until I was sitting at home reading the script by myself, and I thought, oh, well, that's I'm going to be the enemy of everyone.
Yeah.
Yay.
To be involved, though, and play, I mean, at that point, obviously, this was season 4, I think, of The X-Files, so it's already quite a phenomenon, and then you're coming in to play the younger version of a character who's already quite iconic, obviously the cigarette smoking man played by William B. Davis, and it's
absolutely.
It must. How did it feel actually coming in to do a version of what William Davis had done already?
I was very concerned about getting it right if I could, because he's a really big part of that show, and so I watched episodes. I watched how he smoked. I tried to mimic him a little bit just to give a flavor of it. And eventually when I ended up playing his son, or one of his sons, he was great to work with. Fantastic,
Yeah.
Although I did, when I first met him on the Fox lot, I remember Vancouver, he came up to me and he said, "Oh, you're not tall enough." Hi, William. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. But yeah, you did a great job, I think, getting across that character. You know, a difficult part because you didn't. I suppose in those episodes where you did play the young smoking man, you didn't have necessarily as much to work with as you would have done when you played Spender. And you suppose it must have was it difficult? Was it tricky trying to use those fairly limited scenes to try and get into that character and imbue that character?
Well, you know, with the X-Files, it was like making a movie every week as opposed to a regular television show. They pay so much attention to detail. They give you so much to work with. So they give you great scripts and other fabulous actors to work with. So you just got to kind of try to do your job and fit in there as best you can, which is what I was trying to do. And to get into the mindset, to tell you the truth, I was reading. I was reading about Oliver North at the time,
right?
Who was big at that time. That was a big story then. And but just to get my head wrapped around the idea of conspiracies and dark government ops and that kind of thing.
Yeah, getting into the mind space.
That's right. You just got to get in there.
The arch villain of the piece, really. So did it? I mean, I'm guessing then that having played the young version of that character. Although I'm getting ahead of myself because before you played Spender, a few episodes before you played Spender, there was the character of the Great Mutato, wasn't there, in the Post-Modern Prometheus? How did that? Because that's a very different character from what both of the others you played. How did that come about, being involved in playing that role?
Yes, that was that is still one of my favorite experiences. I just thought it was. I loved the end product. I thought it was wonderful, and I know that they had got an Emmy nomination for the makeup, which they richly deserved. So with that, Chris called my agent, I guess, and I came in to read for him. I had no idea what he was doing. He said he gave me a page, which was the monologue that the Great Mutato says at the end.
Yeah.
And he said to me, think Elephant Man. Think dignity. And I said, okay. So then I gave the read, and he looked at me and he said, that's good. That's very good. He's not autistic. So Can you do it with less kind of autism?
Right.
Which is the strangest direction I've ever been given. But yeah. But that was a fantastic show to work on. I was in makeup the first time for about 7 hours.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Plus they do all the plaster casting, which is that's always great for an actor. I love doing stuff like that. It's very challenging.
Yeah. Well, that was what I was going to ask actually about in terms of the makeup, because obviously they don't show him full on the Mutato, do they? He's always in shadow. He's always sort of turned away from camera a little bit. So was it the amount you put on? I mean, was that process really fun to do, or was it quite? Because obviously people talk about how extensive makeup can sometimes be really laborious and difficult. But did you enjoy that process as getting into the character?
Well, you're right about the fact that the makeup, when it's done so well, and you look in the mirror, you think, oh, there's the character right there. I've got a voice now because I can see what he looks like, and I think I know how I'm going to move. So they contribute so greatly to that, and the makeup artists on that show were fantastic. On the other hand, sitting for that length of time and working together, we would show up at 4 a.m. on set to shoot late in the afternoon, maybe early evening. And there would be no one there, like some poor PA making coffee and a couple of makeup artists and myself in the dark. And we would just start piece by piece. They'd put some music on and away we go. And very challenging. And on the very first day, I remember we finally finished after it was about 6.5 hours in the chair. And then I had about a 2.5, 3 hour wait around. And then in the night, I got a knock on my door, and they were taking me to set. And I was driving in a van. I could only see out of one eye and in the dark of this house. And then suddenly I saw Chris Carter right in front of me, and he said, "Can you dance?" What the hell? What is he talking about? Yeah, so.
Yeah, it'd be one of those moments.
Upstairs I danced doing what he suggested.
Well, that's the thing. I suppose it's one of those. The Post-Modern Prometheus is one of those rare episodes that Chris Carter actually wrote and directed. So, what was the? Because obviously you work with a lot of the other directors who were involved. You know, people like James Wong and Kim Manners and people like that. But was it working? And not just from Carter's script, but from his direction. Was that a particularly different experience from a lot of the other directors involved?
Absolutely. Every director has their own stamp, of course, their own way of dealing with things. And for example, Kim Manners, who directed more episodes than anyone else, God bless him, passed away. But he would, on set, he would say, "Let's go, action, kick it in the ass." That was his way of getting things going. When Chris is directing, it's a very quiet set.
Right. Okay.
The boss is there. Everyone is very calm, very surfer-like. Very rarely do things get out of control. Well, I've never seen it. Chris is, he's very exacting. And, he knows what he's doing, and he's a very calm presence. He likes to take the actors aside and whisper something, Yeah. He's one of those guys. He's great to work with.
That's really interesting, because obviously looking through the episodes you were in, you've actually appeared with a real sort of diverse mix of some of the most interesting directors who ever worked on the show. You had... obviously Chris Carter, and you worked with him a few times as a director, obviously on The Red and the Black and Triangle right. as well, which is yes. I've got a question about Triangle coming up later, because it's one of the most beloved fan episodes. But also people like R.W. Goodwin and even David Duchovny as well, which is a real mix of people. So, I mean, do you feel like you got maybe a really quite different, diverse experience working with people who are like David Duchovny, who was an actor as well, or these directors with different styles as you just described? I mean, did you feel you got a broader sort of X-Files experience out of that than people maybe who were directed once or twice by the same person?
Oh yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Everyone, you're right. Everyone brings something a little to the table and what they're doing. I mean, X-Files at that point was a very well-run machine as well. So the crew is just so on it. They know exactly what they're doing. They just need a voice at the helm. And working with all of those guys was fantastic. I mean, David is wonderful. He's as you know, he's got one of the greatest senses of humor you'll find. So he's always fun to work with.
Yeah, that must be really interesting, because at that point, season 9, he wasn't actually in the show at that point as Mulder. He'd obviously technically sort of left until The Truth, when he comes back at the end. But then him coming back and directing, was it interesting actually at that? Did you pick up on anything there with him coming back? What was the atmosphere like with him on set, if you can remember, with having not playing Mulder but being involved in the behind the scenes?
Well, I think if I remember correctly, David always has. David and Angeline both have quite a presence on set, and everyone is very focused on what they're doing and whatnot. So I think it was no different with David coming back and just being at the helm. He's he's a very funny guy, very smart, and he's also very humble. So he was great to work with. He's very giving.
That's it sounds really different, kind of experience. But then obviously after the Great Mutato, Jeffrey Spender comes along. Was it a natural? I suppose what I was going to ask before was it a natural progression for Chris Carter and the casting directors and everything like that to say, Chris Owens played the young smoking man, let's have him play the smoking man's son? Was that how it came about, or was it a different process?
Yes, that was their decision, and I'm very happy that they made it. But at the time, I thought it was a little nutty. Am I going to be able to pull this off? Aren't people going to be looking at me saying, "That's the same guy"?
Yeah.
But thankfully, the way they wrote it and brought him in, it's it sort of seemed to work. And what a great opportunity for me to see things from that side to play a regular character. It's fantastic.
Did you know that Spender was going to recur then at that point when you were casting for Patient X, when he comes in and he becomes quite an obstacle for Mulder in many ways, and Scully? Did you know it was a recurring part, or was that something that you found out later?
What I found out was you're right. What I found out was when I was just offered that part. that there was a conversation that it would be recurring. And I happened to be at a movie theater in Vancouver, and I was there early, and there was a bar next door. So I went into the bar and I ordered a martini, of all things. and there was suddenly a voice in my ear, and it said, I didn't know they served two-headed guys here. And I turned, and it was Mr. Carter. So just happened to be in the same theater or the same bar, and he said, "Have you heard the good news?" And I thought, yes, I just did. So yeah, that was right out of Hollywood right there.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Fan question from Maura on our group, who asks if how much evolution you had as in Spender's character and your involvement as in terms of the character with the Smoky Man and Mulder and Scully. Was your character's story arc mapped out from the beginning, or did it evolve and change during your time on the show?
It definitely evolved and changed. I don't know what their plan was at the beginning. They were just, I think, trying to be creative, and as they always were. And in fact, when I was shot off screen, I was totally surprised. I had no idea that there would be like a several year break before I'd be back on the show. So yeah, I just basically had to go along with every episode and let them tell me what the character was going to be doing,
which I suppose makes sense from an actor's point of view. And when we've spoken to a few of the actors who've come on the Xcast, that they often say that they tend to just go with what they're given, and go with what they work with. I mean, that must be interesting in itself as an actor to do that. If you become really attached to a character and you've got particular ideas or feelings about where that character goes. Did you ever feel that with Spender, or was it a bit different?
No, I wondered where he was going to go, and kind of which side of the fence I was on, and I also, as an actor, what was interesting was I thought, well, I'm going to have to just commit to whatever is happening, and then the character will create itself through the story arc, whatever that may be. And I also had to, as an actor, my actor's ego had to resist trying to be charming or interesting or anything beyond what was written. To play that guy. If he was going to be a bit of a thorn in Mulder's side, then so be it. Then be a real thorn. Like, do your job.
Yeah. Yeah, and it really comes across, because there are points where, and what's really good about Spender is that he goes in the 5th and 6th series, he goes through a real character arc from that starting point of being very difficult and obstructive, and he doesn't like Mulder and he doesn't believe in what he's doing, and then at the end of the one son, which at that time, the last episode before you came back, there was that moment of realization. That genuinely, I've got to say that, Chris, that genuinely has always stuck with me. That scene where you're with Nicholas Lee as Krychek and you've just discovered that aliens are real, and your reaction genuinely has always stuck with me. And I thought it was really well done, in that you just have that look of someone who's just seen the scales fall from your eyes and a completely different world appear. I thought that was genuinely a great piece of acting, because you really felt Spender have no idea who he is and what he's doing at that point.
Absolutely. Well, thanks. That's exactly what we're going for. And it was, I really felt that. I felt that what was going on for the character, and there was the physical evidence of it. The body oozing green blood out of his neck.
There's no ambiguity there, is there?
That's right.
Definitely.
I'm going to have to wake up. Climate change is real.
Exactly. And that's one of that was a really great moment. And I think it was interesting how he kind of appears through those 2 seasons. And another listener, Christian, asks, what are your thoughts on Spender's sort of regenerations? And somebody else asked, do you think that Spender is as indestructible as the Smoky Man? Because obviously he gets shot, and then he turns up in William in season 9, and he's completely, and in The Truth, and he's really disfigured, and he's gone through these awful experiments. And then when you came back in the recent series, that seems to have gone away. Do you think there's a level of, like, he just keeps bouncing back with his character?
Well, it must be in my blood. They couldn't kill Dad.
Exactly. Yeah.
Every time they blew, I thought didn't they just send a missile into the cave? I mean, he's blowing up. He's got to be dead. No, he's still there. He's indestructible. I felt that with Spender. I thought, oh, look at this, and we're coming back, and I'm a little more burned this time. Actually, this past the last time they did the makeup for the most recent episodes, I said to my wife, look at that. I look pretty good. I think I've healed well. I mean, this is as good as I've looked on this show for the last while.
But when you came back for the ninth season for those 2 episodes, and you were in makeup then, and you were disfigured, what was the process of getting that call back? I mean, I'm guessing you were quite surprised that you were reappearing, but then did you? What was did they give any specific reasons about why Spender was coming in to fill that role or anything like that?
Well, Tony, I was sitting around the house in the afternoon. The phone rang. I picked it up, and it was David. He said, "Hey, Chris, how you doing?" I said, "Hi, David." I hadn't talked to David for, I don't know, a couple of years.
Yeah.
and he said, "So I'm directing. I'm directing the last episode, and I want to bring you back, and we're going to bring you back for the finale." And I said, "But that's amazing. But how? Aren't I dead or something?" And he said, "Alien injection. Don't worry about it."
Only on the X-Files could they get away with that.
Absolutely. He said I remember him also saying that we're looking forward to it. You come down. We're going to have a lot of fun. It'll be you won't. You'll be under all that shit. And I said, what? Wait, what? But David, he's not only directed the episode and I had all that makeup on and whatnot, but at the end, on the very last day of filming, I was given a note that David had arranged for me to have a massage in my hotel room by a professional, and it was very kind.
that is a good little extra for sure.
That's a teammate.
Yeah, absolutely. But actually, just to track back, because Paige, another one of our listeners, mentioned, she said she's always wanted to find out about how your memories from filming Triangle, which I mentioned earlier, where you got to play a not really Spender. Well, you got to play Spender, but then a Nazi Spender.
A Nazi, yes, that's right.
I mean, that really. I mean, for years, even now, in our X-Files fan group, there's debate about quite what that meant and whether or not it was all in Mulder's head and it was a big dream as to what was going on. But I mean, that must have been a lot of fun to actually be on that set and playing that kind of character.
That episode, it was as interesting to do as it is to watch. It was fascinating. It really was. It was great because, of course, they were using sort of an ode to Alfred Hitchcock's Rope movie, where it would appear that it was all one take. And so we had long takes of 2 minutes duration. And sometimes, there'd be a mistake or something wouldn't quite go, and we'd have to pick up the bodies and dust them off and dry up all the blood and change all the outfits, and we'd start again,
Yeah.
They were, I think, 150 extras on board the ship. Wow. Which was, and everyone in period costume, and I think, it's such a great ode to, the Wizard of Oz, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you were there, and you were there, and you were there.
Well, this is it. Everyone. I think there's a general consensus that it probably is Mulder's crazy, crazy dream. It's the only way to explain it, I suppose. But
I guess they have the artistic license to just take us off into single episodes once in a while, I guess. And you're right. What is it? Is it Mulder's thinking? Is it? I've literally stood around with other actors holding the scripts, saying things like, what do you think the bees are? I'm not sure. But the guys with their eyes sewed, what do we think that's going on? So we're trying to figure it out too. Well,
no, I'm sure, yeah, because you were mainly involved in, certainly as Spender, you were mainly involved in what they call the mythology episodes. So
that's a conspiracy and mythology episodes, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So you were involved in a lot of these key episodes. Two Fathers and One Son were the ones that blew the doors open of it, really. So it was big episodes with tons of revelations and this kind of thing. So it must have been quite exciting to be there reading these scripts and going, oh, That's what happened to Mulder's sister. That's what the bees are about.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's like. I can sit down with a script and think, okay, here we go, blank sheet of paper. What is this going to be? Where is this show going to go now? I had no idea. You know, and because it was such, it was highly, the ratings were very high at the time, and there was a real buzz around it. You know, it was fantastic to be a part of.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, and did it feel that way for when you got the callback for season 11, for when you appeared in My Struggle 3, the season premiere? Because obviously that was amazing. When Jeffrey crops up in that, everyone was, oh, it's Spender! And I certainly did. I genuinely did a little bit of, wow, it's Spender! I was so really genuinely happy to see you back. Because obviously at the end of The Truth, from what I remember, Mulder basically sort of says, let him go because they're going to kill him if you don't let him go. And then he's out there for all these years and everything like that. So, were you surprised to get the call back to come back and play him?
I was hoping. I thought, well, I'm still alive. Can they use the character, or how are they going to tell this story? So I thought, wow, what show brings you back? 17 years later or something?
Yeah,
unbelievable. That's never happened in my career. So I was thrilled. And I went out and I had a great time. I really did.
Yeah, because
part of it.
Obviously you play the a bit of the savior, don't you? Really, you come in and you're helping. Really, you're going to Scully and you're giving information, and it's a small role, but it must have been fun to be involved with. Were you a fan much of the revival episodes? Have you seen many of them or anything like that?
Yeah, I did. I thought they did some fantastic stuff. I mean, I thought it was very much the tone of the X-Files. You know, sometimes they were doing the conspiracy episode, and another time they were standalone. There was comedy, there was horror, there was there was overwrought excitement. There's all sorts of stuff, right? I thought they did a great job. And
he's still out there.
So, he's still out there. That's right.
If the show comes back. There was a question actually from another one of our listeners, Adam, who said, "What do you think that Spender had been doing since the end of The Truth through to your reappearance in My Struggle 3? What have you got any thoughts about that, Chris?"
Well, having failed in his National Hockey League career, it's funny. I did wonder. I thought when I went out there, I wonder what kind of clothes they were going to suggest that what is my wardrobe? What do they see me doing? And I'm taking out the recycling in this building. Where is this? This is where I live. What have I? I speculated. I thought, all right, maybe I went into, maybe Spender's doing some kind of writing thing on the sly or something, or I'm not really sure. He's doing something. He's got his finger in the pulse somewhere.
There needs to be a lost episode of the X-Files, the Spender years.
Right. That's right.
The lost Spender years. I think people would be interested for sure. Yeah, I mean, like I say, I think everyone was really, really pleased to see Spender back because he did make an impression on the show without question. Your characterization of him really did. Were there any particular? I mean, you worked obviously quite closely with people like Veronica Cartwright and Mimi Rogers, as well as David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson. Well, did you find any particular people you were working with particularly enjoyable to work with, or was it just everybody involved really?
Well, at the risk of sounding like Mr. Super Nice Guy, but the fact is everybody was fantastic to work with. I mean, they're all pros and they all come prepared to work. I was very interested to see just how people approach their work. David he's the kind of actor who can tell a joke and then go right into action. Like he can do that.
Yeah.
Not everybody can do that, but he can. And Gillian is much on set, at least my experience with her. She's and I mean this in a good way, much sillier than she appears in the show. Right. Certainly, she's very serious in the show, but she's not adverse to any sort of jokes and humor, and her laughter can be heard all over the place in between takes. So it's talk about an acting job. I mean, that's not her.
Well, I believe all the way through filming both seasons, she's frequently like Instagramming and tweeting funny videos and pictures and making funny faces for her fans and things. So yeah, she does really come across as someone who is quite fun to be around when she's.
She is absolutely fun. Yeah, yeah.
Had they changed? I mean, had they changed really in the years between when the original run of the series was out and then the revival series? Had they changed as people? Had they changed as actors, particularly when you worked with them?
Well, let's see. I didn't actually end up working with David, so
of course.
Unfortunately. But I did read his novel on the way out there.
Yeah.
It was very good. The guy, he can act and write as well. Jesus.
Yeah. He's a talented guy.
He's a very talented guy.
Yeah.
So I didn't get a chance to see him, but I did. But Jillian, it was funny when we were actually in the room and holding our little scripts and trying to map out how this scene is going to work. There was Chris and there was Jillian and myself, and it just seemed like it was the same thing.
Wow.
I mean, it just seemed like we turned the clock back,
Yeah.
Wow. They were doing the same job, and Jillian was just as charming as always, and it was pretty delightful,
Yeah, that's really good. That's great to hear. I've heard that from a few people actually who came back and said that, or I've seen that. So that's really good. One other thing I just wanted to ask you about in terms of sort of related to the X-Files was you appeared on Millennium as well.
Yes.
In an episode called Monster where you played a deputy. Was that a different experience to be? Because we're doing a spin-off podcast about Millennium, so we're going to get to that episode eventually with you in. But was that a different experience working on that show, even though it was the same, people producing it and things like that? I know it was one-off, obviously, but did you enjoy that process?
Oh, absolutely, yes. The wonderful lead actor of that series,
Lance Henriksen.
Lance Henriksen, yes. What I loved was you come on set, no matter where you are on the soundstage, if they're recording, you hear the actors talking, and then you hear this low rumble, and that was him. It's like, no one has a voice like that man. Amazing. Yeah, and I found the show, the atmosphere. The crew was great. Everyone was great. The atmosphere around that show was a little darker. That was the impression I got.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm surprised it didn't continue on, actually.
Yeah, I think it's got a lot of traction over the years. It's been a really underrated show that I think people would love to see come back, like the X-Files. So,
I think so.
I think they're still campaigning for that a little bit. I think Lance Henriksen still is campaigning for it even now. So fingers crossed one day. But no, it was just interesting that you were one of the actors who crossed over to that as well. So it must have been a really interesting time being involved with all of that Canadian-based development of TV. I mean that's the other thing. It really felt, for people I've spoken to who've been involved, who live in Canada or are from Canada, it really felt like it was bringing something to Canada in terms of production and television and acting. I mean, have you found that over the years that it's sort of Canada's been put on the map almost by shows like the X-Files?
Oh, well, sure. It didn't hurt. That's for sure. And I think too, this to show not only the wonderful like the level of actors that are here, but the crew, the production, and then just the fact that you can, Vancouver and Toronto, where I live, they can stand in for so many other places.
Yeah.
You've got your urban, you've got your suburban, you've got wilderness area, you've got heavy inner city, so you can really working class, and you can really spread it around.
Yeah, it really does feel that versatile, really, as a place.
Right.
Tracking right back though, I mean, what's your origin story with acting? I mean, we're going back a while here, but you've been acting for years, 30 odd years. But what got you into it in the first? Is it always something you wanted to do? Was it a passion for when you were young? What was your starting point?
Yes, pretty much. I think I once had an acting teacher. Someone asked him, should I be an actor? And he said, if you can think of anything else, do it.
Great.
Point being, when I was a kid, I was right away drawn to just wanting to perform, not so much in a flashy way, but in a way that I love to tell stories, and I loved it if we could get some laughter going and some fun. So even when I was in grade school, I was like putting on shows in my school. I don't know what I was thinking. It's when you're 17 and you're living on your own, thinking, oh, this choice is going to be challenging.
Yeah.
Better work on my bartending skills.
But I mean, you've been in so many things over the years. You know, you've been in movies from from as far back as Cocktail with Tom Cruise,
Yes.
all the way through to like The Incredible Hulk and things like that. I mean, you've had a real span, and then lots of TV shows over the years. A lot of classic '90s TV shows like Tech War and Sci Factor and all these. So you've really got a diverse career, over the years.
I'm much older than I look, Tony.
No comment. I'm not being drawn into that one, Chris.
What was funny was when Tara and I, my wife and I, were watching the episode on television, the latest from the last season, season 11. Just before I appear for the first time, we're sitting there with our popcorn. I'd forgotten that Jillian's character, she was going to have a flashback, and they're showing all sorts, and then they show me like my first appearance on the show, and I was a child, it looked like. And then they cut to me next, and Tara turned to me and said, "Hey, honey, you've really aged."
I'm like, thank you.
It's 23 years. Everybody ages over 23 years.
Thanks for pointing that out.
That's what love is, Tony.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm sure my wife would say something similar to me. But yeah, it's you've had a really varied career. I mean, obviously, aside from the X-Files, presumably, have you had any particular favourite roles or anything that you've really loved doing over the years, either in TV, film, or theatre, or anything like that?
Well, that's a question that makes sense to ask. Like, what do you want to do, or what have you done that was your favorite? And often actors say, "Well, the next one is."
Yeah.
But I have to say, I mean, I certainly have a very special spot for everything X-File related, because I got to experience so many interesting things. I loved playing the part. I loved working with that cast and crew, and so the fact that like you pointed out the Triangle episode. Well, I'd never worked on an episode that was all supposed to look like one take. I'd never worn the kind of prosthetics that I did as the Great Mutato, and I loved the black and white look. That was great. So just trying all these different things. It's I mean, I did have a lead in a film up in Toronto here, which I loved, and I thought I'm going to do 2 or 3 of these a year. But the fact is, they don't always come up. You've got to take advantage when you can, and enjoy the one you're working on.
Yeah. I'm
working on The Expanse right now. So The Expanse is like another great crew. Fantastic. Great to work with.
Yeah, I've seen that. And that's obviously that's on Netflix in the UK. It's quite a show with a growing fan base, really, which is so that must be fun to be involved with.
It was fantastic. I just worked on like the last part of the 3rd season, and it looked like the show wasn't going to continue. And then because of the fan base, it is. And so, so hopefully they'll get to use me some more because I'm still alive.
Still going. There is one thing actually that I've seen on your credits, which is interesting in that you were part for just one episode of a Canadian-based short series called In Human Condition a few years ago, which starred Tori Higginson from Stargate.
Yes.
Yes. And interestingly enough, probably more interesting to me than you, the writer of that show, a guy called R.J. Lackey, Bob Lackey, is somebody I know completely randomly. I've known him for years via the internet. And he was talking about how he was creating this web series and things like that, and I was sharing it on social media. So it's really interesting that you involved with that show. So that's another great little connection randomly.
That is a great connection. That's just a few degrees right there. I mean, that's
it really is. Yeah.
That's so funny, man. I liked working. I think that was just the one episode, but I enjoyed it. It was it was well written. It was fun to do.
Yeah, no, that's really great. Yeah, it's a strange connection, but yeah, it's I think it's like I say, it's been great to see you as Spender again, and I think I'll leave the final question to a friend of mine called Matt, who's one of the listeners, who says, what are your thoughts on the possible future then of the X-Files? Do you see it coming back one day, like either as a reboot or another continuation? And I guess, do you see Spender part of that future, I guess?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I wondered about that after the end of season 11. I thought the ending was quite surprising, with the... I know this much. Chris Carter is a very creative, energized guy, and I don't know that he probably has more vision left, I think, and if he does, then I would be very happy to be a part of it. It's unless what do you think? Do you think that as it stands now, the X-Files, would that be the way to close it off?
Well, as a fan, I think it's a difficult question, really, because on the one hand, you kind of feel like it ended with them having a doorway to let Mulder and Scully go off and have a new family and be happy.
Right.
And, the smoking man is maybe dead. Probably not, really.
Just a flesh wound.
Yeah, just a flesh wound. He'll rise. He'll be back. But there are things that are left unresolved, obviously. A lot of fans, I think, feel there are certain things unresolved. Like poor Skinner, poor Mitch Pileggi underneath the car.
Yes, that was terrible.
Yeah.
Feel bad for him.
So he will. Incidentally, people always say how lovely he is and what a nice guy and great actor he is as well. So was he fun to work with? Because you would work with him a little bit.
Oh, he is a complete gentleman. He is. That is how I would describe Mitch. He is a gentleman. There's no question about it. We had a great time working together. Yeah. Fantastic. He's a total pro.
I hope he doesn't really do podcasts, I don't think, but I do hope to get him on the show one day because I'd love to speak to him. But
that would be that's funny. I thought he would like this kind of thing. He's an articulate fella. He likes to get in there.
Yeah, well, maybe one day. Fingers crossed. But yeah, so there's little things a little bit unresolved, I think. I don't know. I mean, I think I want to see it continue somehow. If that was a reboot with new people as Mulder and Scully, then as the way things tend to go these days, then so be it. But I would rather see David and Gillian back in some way. But
right,
if possible.
Yeah, I find it I agree with you. I think the story it felt like it reached an ending anyway. Maybe they do a movie of the week sort of thing or something. I'm not sure. But you also don't want to you don't want to take all the blood out of the stone, right?
Yeah. No, I know, and it could be that it's run its sort of course, but then the fandom is still really alive. I mean, next year there's a new convention going on in Chicago that's going to be hopefully quite big. The X Fest, there's still things like this podcast happening and lots of fan groups and things like that. So the passion for it is still out there, really. So it would be, I think people would want to see it carry on in some way.
I would like to see that too. I mean, I think they can take the show anywhere they want to take it. I mean, as far as their imaginations go. So even if a series is too difficult to work on for the length of time, they could do a film, or they could do 6 episodes or something like that. I mean, you're right. There is a fan base for it for sure.
Yeah, they're alive and well.
Sense, yeah.
There was alive and well as Spender. Because he's not going anywhere. That guy is going to outlive us all. Chris, it's been really great to have you on the show. We really appreciate you coming on and sharing some of your memories of playing Spender and all these different roles on the X-Files. So it's been a real thrill to talk to you and thank you for coming on the X-Cast.
Oh, thank you very much, Tony. I loved being on the X-Cast. It was great. We'll chat again some other time.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be lovely. Until then, I mean, what are you working on right now? What can you direct people to? Is there anything you're going to be in, or you want people to keep an eye out for, or any social media links or anything like that you want to promote while you're here?
Righto. Right. Well, I just did a film called Believe Me, which is which we'll play on the Lifetime channel, and I had a little part in A Simple Favor, which was cool. And right now I'm preparing for Halloween. Are you big on Halloween, Tony?
Well, it's not quite as big a deal in England as it is in the US.
Right.
We still do it. I said to someone the other day, we tend to buy chocolate just in case kids come and knock on our door, for sweets. But I always just try and prevent answering the door so I can eat it. Really, so that's my tactic.
I have to hide the candy from my wife, so I understand. Prior to, but you know what I will, Tony? I'll send you a few photos of our house because I decorate our house.
Oh wow!
So, we've got skeletons. There's a skeleton invasion on the outside of the house right now. I've been working on it for the last week. So
amazing! Please do, absolutely. That'd be great. But no, well, keep an eye out for Chris's future projects, and I hope you have a great Halloween and it goes off really well. It's, as I say, it's been lovely to have you on the show. Thank you. Hopefully, not for the last time either. So you're always welcome back on if you ever have the chance.
Great, thanks, Tony.
No, it's a pleasure. So yeah, we'll be back soon, guys, for more coverage of season 4, which we're working our way through now, and any supplemental episodes. So thanks for listening, guys, and always remember, as always, trust no one. The X-Cast, an X-Files podcast, is produced and presented by Tony Black, alongside a dedicated group of podcasters and X-Files fans. You can find us on Twitter at The X-Cast, and on Facebook if you type in The X-Cast, or at our group, X-Files Basement, an X-Cast podcast fan group, where you can continue the discussion about all things Mulder and Scully. If you want to support the X-Cast further, you can now subscribe and become a patron of the show on Patreon. On Google, just type patreon.com/The X-Cast. That's Patreon. You'll see all of our tiers, subscription options and perks, which include early access to episodes, bonus content such as commentaries on X-Files episodes, access to a patron chat zone, and even appearing on one of our patron roundtable discussions. We would appreciate any support you can give the show, so just go to patreon.com/The X-Cast to find out more. Our title music is provided courtesy of Will A, who you can find on Twitter at IamWillAYE.